Hey, what's up everyone, Ragey Golden Eagle here, having way too much fun as always. And today I'm here to do you guys a little bit of a public service and shine yet another spotlight on one of the biggest problems plaguing current year society. Aussie families desperate for help as video game addicted children stop attending school. As you can tell from the title, the problem I'm referring to are shitty parents blaming anything and everything but themselves for how their kids turn out. They have the gall to ask for help with their game-addicted kids who stopped attending school? I have to ask, who is enabling this behavior, huh? Who keeps providing these kids who clearly don't work with video games? Who refuses to discipline their damn kids and make them go to school? Yeah, anyone with a functioning brain can tell before we even get to the article, this isn't a problem with video games. This is a problem of low IQ, emotionally driven, glorified monkeys reproducing. And predictably, they start out by citing the World Health Organization recognizing game addiction as a psychological disease, and then pretty much proceed to use it as an excuse. Man, where have we seen this kind of behavior before? It seems pretty common in current year, doesn't it? But apparently game addiction isn't recognized in Australia, so all these shitty parents have a problem finding something to blame. In its absence, thousands of teenagers across the nation are battling everything from social anxiety to depression and violent outbursts, as their obsession with the video gaming world continues to grow. Once again, I have to ask the tough question here. Who is enabling all of these unemployed kids? If these were adults who made their own money and paid for these games and were ruining their own lives, you may have a little bit of a different story there. But when you don't work and you live with mommy and daddy, guess who's enabling it? With their teenage children refusing to go to school and, in some instances, to even leave their room, these parents are desperate to bring attention to gaming addiction in the hope that it leads to much-needed support. I agree. These parents clearly need support. They either need to be taught how to parent properly, or alternatively, isn't this exactly the kind of shit that Child Protective Services was created for? To save kids from crappy parents who are ruining their lives, like their entire futures? This right here seems like a legitimate excuse for Child Protective Services to step in and say, yeah, if you refuse to be a parent to this damn kid, we're gonna take him and give him to someone who's willing to do the job. Although I guess maybe I shouldn't be too hard on parents. Yeah, I know most of them in this situation are pretty shitty, but I have known of a few actually good parents, or at least parents who are trying to be good, and yet the government prevents them from it. Just think about any way you could resolve this situation if you were a parent and that was your kid and somehow you were brain dead for the past few years and let the situation get this bad, and then look up the laws and see how many of your solutions are actually illegal. So for the few good parents out there who are trying to do the right thing but are fighting against the government, then my condolences. This rant isn't aimed at you. But even you must realize that the vast majority of fellow parents out there are not that good. So let's get into the two case studies they have here. First off, Logan. He no longer plays sports, sees his friends, and most alarmingly, hasn't been to school since he was 12. Okay, the first two I can actually somewhat understand. Having been in a similar position myself, and that is pretty much being forced to play a sport I didn't want to play, the first chance I had to get out of it, I did. The article, of course, doesn't specify that he was doing it because he liked it. Depending on where you live, his parents could have pretty much forced him into it, like how football is in Texas. And I mean American football, by the way, for all my foreign listeners. And the whole seeing his friends thing. Back when I was a kid, I haven't yet learned that it's better to have a small group of real friends than a large group of people you barely know. So as soon as I found better things to do with my time, I of course started hanging out less with the people I was hanging out with just to kill time or out of habit. If I don't enjoy hanging out with you, I'm not gonna hang out with you. So I don't see a problem with that either. Again, it all depends on the situation and the article didn't specify. But it's the second part that really triggers the hell out of me. This kid is 14 now. Hasn't been to school since he was 12. How is this the fault of video games and not shitty-ass parents? Someone please tell me? And in case you don't believe me when I say shitty parents, oh, just wait till you get a load of this. Logan's desperate mom, Britta, tells 60 Minutes her son is withdrawn, angry, depressed, anxious, and completely different to the outgoing, adventurous boy he used to be. And as we're gonna see in the next two lines, with a mom like this, it's no surprise. I keep saying to him, I miss my boy. I miss the boy that I used to have. Yeah, she went there. She refused to do her damn job as his mom and make sure he doesn't get to this point in the first place. Then she tries to blame and guilt trip him. Oh, you're a piece of shit now compared to what you used to be. Oh, I miss who you used to be. Well, maybe if you actually parented the kid, he still would be. All these women out there saying that being a stay-at-home mom is the hardest job in the world, it doesn't mean shit if you do the job as poorly as this woman. But surprisingly, the article actually does get into a little bit of this. Britta has faced relentless criticism of her lack of parenting, but is adamant that the obvious solution of banning video games is not as easy as it sounds. Probably because that's not the obvious solution. Try taking away a drug addict's drugs and make him go cold turkey and see what happens. No, it's already too late for the best solution, which was you were supposed to be watching him and make sure it doesn't get this far to begin with. That's pretty much what my parents did. My parents, well, my dad anyway, had no issues with me watching R-rated movies before I was even 10 years old. I've mentioned in my videos before, I was watching Steven Seagal movies with my dad when I was like fucking 5. My mom did care at first, but eventually she eased up on it once she verified it wasn't having a negative effect on me, and that's the key. You're supposed to be a parent. Watch what your kids are doing and watch their behavior. Whenever I got too into certain video games and I was developing a bad case of gamer rage, my mom just put a stop to it right then and there. She pretty much said, yeah, I told you ahead of time. I don't care if you play these violent R-rated games, or M-rated for the games anyway, R-rated movies. I don't care if you consume all this content as long as I see it's not having a negative effect on you. As long as your grades are okay and you're still emotionally stable, you can do it. But if you keep acting like this, I'm taking all that away from you. So I calmed the hell down. If she was doing her job as a parent to begin with, her son would not be in this situation. And some of you out there may be saying that I'm being a little bit mean and maybe she realizes her error now. I doubt she does. If she really did recognize that she made a mistake, then she would be using the platform that the news has given her here to spread that message to other parents. Hey, this is where I screwed up, don't make the same mistake I did. And then even better if she could find some parents that did it right and bring them on to give advice. If she really did realize she's the one that made a mistake, that's the kind of stuff she'd be doing, but no. She's just an innocent victim here to these vile video games. But either way, putting that aside, we now get to the second kid whose story isn't nearly as interesting. I don't want to be one of them kids that drop out and play a game and stuff like that, he said. I want to actually get somewhere in life. Holy crap, this kid actually realizes that he may have an issue. This is a 13-year-old boy, by the way. If he already has this much self-awareness, this sounds like a kid you can actually reason with and work towards a solution with. Why his parents haven't done that, I don't know. The article doesn't give me enough information to go by. But if the previous parent is any indication, I think I know why. And in case I sound bitter, it's because I am. I'm getting so sick and tired of shitty-ass parents expecting the entire rest of the world to become child-proof for their shitty-ass kids who they refuse to parent. You're the one that decided to have a kid. That kid is your responsibility, not mine. Quit destroying my hobbies because you think it'll make your shitty job easier. Just had to get that out there in case you guys were detecting some bias here. As many times as the tired old, oh, won't someone think of the CHILLUNS argument has been used against me and the things I like, I've realized that the best counter is to point out, it's not a problem with the stuff I like, it's the fact that you're a shitty parent. Do not let these shitty parents deflect. Do not let them blame anyone or anything else. The problem is never gonna go away until we hold shitty parents to task. And I love the final line too. In psychological terms, this is an emergency. And you know what? I actually agree. I agree with that statement. This is an emergency. Current year society has a huge problem on its hands. And it's not too much video games, it's too little discipline. Yeah, that's right. Discipline. The thing that they're not allowed to teach you in schools anymore. Can't risk hurting any of these snowflakes' precious fifis or self-esteem after all. We don't want them to feel bad because that's going to have a bad effect on them in the future. I'm sure it's going to be a lot worse than lack of discipline, huh? And as I alluded to earlier, parents aren't even allowed to discipline their kids anymore in some places. Even if they want to be good parents, they're just not allowed to. So in a way, this is actually pretty funny to watch. Well, it would be funny if it wasn't for the fact that things I like are being dragged down and blamed for it, but the general concept of it is pretty hilarious. Here you got a classic case of society as a collective shitting where they eat, and then complaining that there is shit where they eat and blaming the shit for it. And as I just said, this would be a whole lot funnier if they weren't dragging down the things I love in the process. And that right there is the key difference to the solution being pointing and laughing at something, and actually doing some damn work to fix the problem and whooping out the good old mirror to start showing them. And that's all I gotta say, guys. Thanks for listening.